If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel on YouTube at Wild and Weird WV.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. We have got an extra special show for you, and we are going to skip the news this week because we have a guest on the show, an experiencer, a researcher, and quite frankly, a really good friend of ours, Mr. Ike Fauber. Now, as you can see, he is down there below in the bottom box here with us. He's been a long time listener to the show. He's been at everything that we've hosted.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, I think so.
He has come and been a part of. He is a member of the family, and he's been interested in this stuff longer than I've been alive. So Ike, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ike Fauber. Worked at Charleston Air Medical Center in a respiratory care department for 48 years, and I have been into paranormal for ever. I was born in 1952, and in 52 is the year of Flatwoods, Braxty, and I grew up always hearing about the Braxton County Monster, and every chance I got, I would get my hands on a book about UFOs, about it wasn't cryptids back then. You'd hear about some strange creature picking up tires and 55-gallon drums and throwing them over the hill in these work areas out northwest, and I just was always intrigued by it. And then we had Braxy right here in West Virginia, so
yeah.
I've been into it ever since.
You know, what's amazes me though, Ike, is that it's only been recently that Braxy's got its due. I mean, it's one of the more underrated and undertold stories, almost, it seems. It's amazing. And it was everywhere, right? I mean, and this was a big...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And you know, I even went to Clarksburg to Gray Barker's library. They have his all of his files on file up there, and his books, everything he had. And when it was funny, I just looked it up on the internet, and it says, you know, you can go from like 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the evening. And I just picked a day and went up there. And I parked, and I knew his files were in a building next to the library. So there's a building next to it. And I go over to that building, try to get in the door. It's locked. So I walk to the next door. It's locked. So I walk all the way around that building, trying to get in, and couldn't get in. So finally I go in the library, and I go up to the main desk there at the library, and I said, you know, I'd like to talk to somebody about seeing Gray Barker's files. And they said, well, you have to talk to, and they gave me the guy's name. I don't remember. And I said, is he here? And they said, well, you're in luck. He's here. So his office was on the second floor. I go up to the second floor, and I knock on a man's door, and he comes out and he says, he said, you don't have an appointment. And I said, well, I didn't know you had to have an appointment. I said, I drove up from Hurricane, and I just wanted to see what was in the his files. And he says, "Well, you're in luck." He said, "I'm finishing up right now, and I can take you over there, but you can't go by yourself. Somebody has to go with you." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Sounds great to me." So I sat down. So I'm sitting there while he's finishing up, and security comes up to me, and security says, "Sir, what are you doing here?" And I said, I'm just sitting there, and I said, "Well, I'm waiting here to go to see Gray Barker's files." And he says, "Do you have an appointment?" And I started laughing. I said, "No, I don't have an appointment." And I don't know where it was going to go. I just thought it was funny that security came in there on me.
Yeah.
And the guy comes out of the office and he says, "Mr. Fauber," he said, "You ready?" And I said, "Yeah, I sure am." And that security guy goes, "Okay, all right, everything's okay." So he backs off. But I thought that was awful funny for a public library to have security coming over on me.
Isn't that weird?
Yes, that was
That
kind of weird.
that is really bizarre. I mean, I guess maybe they're like, well, who's this weird guy? He's just not leaving.
I don't know. I mean,
That
it's
is
kind
an
of
experience there. I mean, if you ever
yeah.
get a chance, Gray Barker's files are worth going up and see. I know that I spent maybe an hour in there, hour and a half, and I was just going through his files. And the one thing that stuck out to me was he had a file in there, a whole couple of folders on UFOs and Bigfoot. And I'm sitting there saying, this is something I thought was pretty recent. I'm reading about it up in, Stan Gordon's starting to document all that. And I'm like, I'm just now starting to hear this. And Gray Barker had this stuff back in the 60s.
Mhm.
So I thought that's the one thing that jumped out at me in his files. But he probably has 6 or 7 file cabinets full of his files, and a shelf full of his books. And they said that they had a documentary on Gray Barker that somebody did, and they had one of the few copies on a CD there, or a DVD. And I thought if I ever go back, I want to take a laptop and see if I can play that and see what it looks like. Maybe even try to run a copy of it. That would be interesting, because I've never seen any documentaries on Gray Barker.
Yeah, that would be really interesting, especially if, like, I don't know why they haven't tried to run a CDR on it.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that is something though. I mean, and you're right. I think we've talked about that before too. It's like a lot of the old pioneers' work is being adopted now. It's been shown that some of these guys weren't quite off their rocker as some of the researchers in the day would have made them out to be. You're seeing that with what you just said with the Barker stuff. You've seen that now with the Keel theories that are starting to kind of be taken more seriously after all these years of just kind of maybe it could be related, might not be, so now they're kind of going that way. So it's interesting.
You think all this early stuff, when it was really getting started, it really took place in this state.
It really did.
Yeah.
That's
we
why
were
yeah,
like
man.
the epicenter of weird throughout the 50s and 60s.
Yes, and that's why we try to always do these things in West Virginia, for West Virginia, is try to kind of bolster that up, because man, do we have such a legacy here in this state of all the weird stuff we've had. Some of the first contactee cases, Indrid Cold, for whatever it was, that was one of the first contactee cases, right? Like a major one. And the whole Green Bank thing, SETI, and we're seeing that play out again today now with the 8 possible signatures that have been detected by AI that's capable of actually going through, I guess, and looking at this data faster than we could ever look at it. And it's going to come back around full circle. We are literally repeating West Virginia's ufological past again, is the way that I see it.
I tell you something that I got years ago is I wrote Drake, Dr. Drake,
Mhm.
and
The Drake equation, right? That
the
Drake.
Drake
Yep.
equation,
Yep.
and I wrote out the Drake equation on a piece of paper. I typed it out and sent it to him and asked him to autograph it for me.
Oh man.
And he sent me an 8x10 picture autographed, and he autographed that Drake equation. So I've
Oh
got that.
That's cool.
gosh. Wow.
That's
Wow,
really
wow,
cool.
wow. Still one of the most prominent pieces of early history that again was born and raised, you know, it literally came out of West Virginia, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep. It's a lot of people when they look at West Virginia, the only thing that comes to mind is the pop culture stuff. They forget all the past and they forget that the majority of all these weird and paranormal stories that everybody's so fascinated with in pop culture has roots right here.
Right here. We have everything from UFOs to giants to ghosts, you know.
Yeah.
Ghost, what is it? The only ghost that's solved its own murder, so to speak, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's be real. We have a really awesome paranormal history. This is ground zero of paranormal, really.
So Ike, speaking of all that, let's get into some of your personal experiences for the listeners.
Well, I'll go over a Bigfoot incident over on Upper Mud River Lake, Lincoln County. I had an experience there one night with my brother, and we were fishing, and the whole thing started out. We just went over to spend the night, and we're going to spend the whole night out on the lake. I have a 16-foot tracker and 10 horsepower motor, and I'm fishing with a black light. Have you ever fished with a black light?
I haven't fished with a black light, but I have fished with using the UV, but not like a traditional black light.
Well, it's just a traditional black light. You put it on the side of your boat, and you use fluorescent line. So we were using jitterbugs, poppers, and the line just glows, and you can see your line out quite a distance. So we get over there, we start fishing, and it's still daylight. It's getting dark. So I put up the black light on the side of the boat, and the funny thing is, when it got dark, right in front of the black light, we had a whole curtain of bugs. I mean, there must have been a million bugs in front of that light, but none of them. They didn't come behind the light.
One of the things that we do when I'm teaching these naturalist courses is we'll do a moth or bug survey, like for a certain area, and we take a big white sheet and we pin it up in some tree branches and then splash it with a black light, and it brings in every moth and insect within a 5-mile radius, it feels like, and they just land on that white sheet.
Yeah,
it draws in the insects like crazy. And the only place that I'd ever fished with UV was when it was down in the Gulf, and we were up in one of the headwaters, and like up in the brackish water where the Mississippi dumps in, and we were fishing up in that area, and we were using some UV light to cast out, because like you could see the shrimp, you could see some other critters that would like phosphoresce themselves, but the line did like just pop, so they were using the UV reactive light line.
Yeah, when you see that line, it's just like it's a treat to fish like that. Anyway, we were fishing, and it got dark, and we're fishing along the bank, and we get anybody that knows the area. There's a beach area that they've uh, put a lot of sand in, and just as we got past that beach area, there's a straight stretch which runs maybe 400 yards, and it's probably about, I'd say, 45 to 50 yards across. So we fish all the way down, and then I always cross over, and then we come back and fish the other side. Now the side on the left, which is uh, the mountainside, it's very deep. It's like over 20 foot deep, like 2 foot from shore. So it's almost straight up and down. Well, we go up through there, we cross over, we're coming back, and we're just sitting there talking, just normal talking, just brothers talking about, hey, you remember this? You remember when we did this and we did this? And both of us shut up at the same time. And it was right about midnight. We heard up on the hill, and we're on the far side of we're on the right hand side. The left hand side of the lake is where the steep mountain is, and we heard this branches breaking on trees, and it was like, it wasn't like a branch breaking. It was like, it was very slow. It would go crack, 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 and I tell you what it sounded like. If you've ever been outside in a ice storm and hear the branches breaking off, because you know how it's so quiet, and then you hear those branches breaking. Well, that's what it was. But it was one after the other break, and then you'd hear a couple thump, thump, and then crack, and you'd hear something walking, and we look at each other and we're like, "What the heck is that?" And so we're sitting there. Just I reach up. We had a lantern on the front of the boat by this time, and I turned the lantern off, and I turned the black light off, and we're sitting there in the complete dark. And then this thing starts walking down the hill. You're hearing a thump, and then a branch break, and you'd hear about every third or fourth step a big branch break. And my brother, he says, I, I've never heard anything like that before. And I'm like, I said, it's pretty daggone spooky. And it just keeps coming down the hill. Now, this is what I'm remembering about it. I remember it coming down the hill and then starts walking back and forwards on, and I could hear it sneezing, like
Wow.
like a person sneezing. And this area is really isolated. It's not like anybody could really be in there in the middle of the night like this.
Yeah.
And the hillside is so steep, a lot of people couldn't even walk that hill. So that's what I'm remembering. Well, I have mentioned this several times to people, and I at the first Wild and Weird Con that you guys hosted, I met a man named Benjamin Moore, and we got to just talking. I said, we need to get together and go out and look for some of this stuff. And he said, yeah. So it was one of those things where we talked about it, but we never did anything. And I don't know what happened, but about 3 months ago, I saw him on the internet, and I just texted him and I said, hey, how you doing? And he said, hey, I've been thinking about you. I've been wanting to get back with you. He said, I met this woman, and she had an experience on Mud River Lake. And I said, I had an experience over there. And he says, well, why don't we go over there and look around and see if we can see anything? And I said, okay. I said, well, what kind of experience did she have? And he said, well, she was like fishing. And I'm thinking, well, I was fishing.
Wow.
And he says, something started throwing rocks and branches at him. And I'm like, wow. I said, I really like to go over there and look around. So he and I get together. We go over there a couple weeks ago, and we're walking around. And I take him down there and kind of show him where things happened for me. And it just kind of brought things back. And I thought, I really need to talk to my brother and see what he remembers, because I never really talked to him about what happened. So,
So after your event, you guys just never spoke about that again, Ike?
well, we mentioned it.
Right. But
We
never
said,
really.
oh, we heard Bigfoot over there, and we'd laugh
Okay.
about it, and,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and that was it. That's all we'd say.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's not terribly uncommon.
It
You know,
happens.
a lot
Yeah.
of people will have these kind of experiences and then they just won't talk about them for years.
Well, I called him up, and I said, do you remember that night over on Mud River Lake? And he said, yeah. I said, well, what do you tell me exactly what you remember? And he's going over everything I just told you.
Hmm.
And I said, and then he said, when it got down, walking down the hill, he said it started running back and forth. And I said, I remember it walking back and forth. I don't remember it really running. And he said it was like an ape running from tree to tree and making a noise like an ape. And I said, well, I don't really remember that. I said, but all I remember is saying, I'd like to go over there and see what that is, but I ain't going to.
Right.
And the reason I said that is because I didn't want it throwing something out on us in the water.
Yeah.
And he said, well, don't you remember throwing branches and rocks out in the water? It'd break a branch off and sling it out in the water at us. And I said, no, I don't remember that at all. And I said, another thing I don't remember is I don't remember us doing anything after that. I don't remember fishing. I don't remember getting a boat out of the water. All I remember is strapping the boat on about 3 o'clock in the morning and us driving home, and we really didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's like we had 3 hours missing time because
Yep.
I don't remember anything. And I'm thinking, and when I think about it, I think, how in the heck did I not remember anything after that? Do I not remember moving my boat from where we were at to the boat dock? I don't remember fishing.
Right.
I don't remember
Right.
anything after that.
Right. And you didn't question it at all.
And never even thought, never thought anything about it. Never thought, well, heck, I didn't catch anything after that happened. I don't remember anything. And I don't remember why we got the boat out, because we were going to fish all night.
And let's be clear.
Taking the boat out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why?
Right. Exactly. And did you ever see anything, or was it just too dark?
No, it was dark. It was like really dark.
Yeah.
And it's funny how things always work out. Is my brother, he has this, well, he had, I don't know if he still does. He had a flashlight that was about that big around. It was like a
big light torch, big cannon.
It was like a million candle fire
Yeah.
thing that you could, it's almost the size of the ones they have out on the tugboats out on the river.
Yeah.
And it was so big, it had a strap that, so you couldn't even carry it. You put it on your shoulder. And he always brought that with him, especially when we went out at night. He didn't bring it that night. Now, if we'd had it that night, we could have put it on the hillside and maybe seen something.
Yep.
It's funny how that stuff just always kind of works out that way.
Isn't it though?
Yes.
You know, some would think that might even be by design, but you know, I mean, there's so many cases of it where someone doesn't bring a certain piece of equipment and something happens. It's very rare that you have a piece of equipment and you catch anything. That's why what happened
you got the
it was so bizarre.
night footage.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. I mean, that was just, it was outside of the norm. That was an anomaly when it comes to most of this stuff.
Yeah.
It was just
really
very
is.
strange.
Because when you're out looking for stuff, you often won't. It's
Right.
that's why I always when we go out and we're doing things, I don't have in the forefront of my mind to go, oh, we're gonna go look for Bigfoot. Like in my mind, when I'm going out,
Well,
I'm going to
maybe
go
that,
out and do an ecological survey.
maybe that's
I'm
what
going to
happened,
enjoy the
Joe.
wildlife and the fauna, and I'm going to document every bit of it I can. And if there's anything weird that happens, awesome.
Maybe that's what happened because I was literally just getting B-roll. You know, I mean, just happened to have a people who were, you know, trying to learn how equipment worked. We weren't actively looking for anything, so maybe that is kind of the same thing. I don't know. Weird though, really weird. Mm. Aquafina. We are not sponsors of Aquafina.
Yet.
But if
Well,
they
we
want to sponsor,
Exactly.
Well, we could be. Anyway, that is an amazing account, and the fact that you had that much missing time is just mind blowing. That reminds me
There's,
of.
there's a few things that could be chalked up to too. Like it could be some other kind of weird phenomena, or it could be the post adrenaline dump. Like that can be pretty common after an adrenaline dump. Is that stuff is foggy and then over time just disappears.
Maybe, possibly, but it's definitely interesting to me, especially that.
my question is, what happened? What
Right,
happened? Did it leave? Did it?
Yeah.
you don't remember at all.
And why was it so pissed off? Why did it get mad? Why was
Yeah.
it running back and forth? Why was it breaking branches?
Agitated, yeah.
And
You guys were out there in its fishing hole.
yeah, yeah. Or else it was wanting to get across the lake.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we were in the spot where it would have normally done that, because there is a on the other side there is a picnic area.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe it was wanting to get over there into something.
Rummage the trash.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, are there trash cans over there in the picnic area?
Correct, yeah. So unless it was wanting to get across and we were in its way.
Okay, yeah, that's an absolute possibility, and that weighs out for the possibility that it was a flesh and blood something or another, right? Now
Right.
let's have a little speculation fun. Let's go off of what we've been talking about for the past few weeks, that this could have been something completely different, and that was just a mental implantation, so to speak. That what you experienced was not exactly what you think you experienced. Also a possibility. So there's so many ways that we can look at this stuff. That's the crazy thing about chasing these things down, because there's, unless there's this evidence that it's 100% this, you have to look at the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And
It can't be
in this case,
ignored. I mean,
it can't
you
be
can
ignored.
certain things you can rule out, but I mean you can't ignore all of it. It's all got to go on the table unless you have proof of something else otherwise.
Exactly. Now, I'm not saying that that's 100% the possibility by any means. If you'd have seen like a strange light in the woods or something like that, I'd be like, oh yeah, probably. But at this point, it just sounds like a really cool Bigfoot type encounter to me.
I'd love to get out there some night, or even like we do most of our Bigfoot research during the day. Just because that's when it's easier to find stuff on the ground. It's when it's easier to find evidence of stuff. We'd love to get out there with you at some point and try to get out to that same location and see if it stirs up anything else for you.
Yeah, if you go to the very end of that straight stretch, that ridge comes down to a nice gentle slope. And I'm thinking that you could get up there. I don't know what it's like beyond 100 yards up the hill there, but
well, I mean, I'm lost beyond the hill. I mean, I heard 16-foot tracker, and I'm thinking like, we need to get on the boat and get on the water.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, that's what we need to do.
Like I said earlier, like looking for Bigfoot is always secondary for me. We can go out there and
just remember to bring your pole. Bring your fishing pole.
Bring the black light, because
always
it kind of sounds like
motives.
there's that possibility too. Okay, let's go with that.
Oh
weird
no,
thing again.
I know where you're going. Good point.
Let's go with the weird thing for just a second and say that you had that black light on. That's also giving off, a different spectrum of lighting. You could have called something in for that matter. Is what I'm
Especially with
kind
the
of.
line lighting up the way it was too,
Uh-huh.
because that's like it's seeing something that is alien to it.
Totally, completely alien to it.
Because you now have this magic string that's lit up and running hundreds of feet, and it's lit up like the sun in the dark.
It's an interesting possibility, especially if we're dealing with something. Some people do believe that they can see infrared, right, Joe?
Yeah.
That's why they say sometimes they avoid the trail cameras, and people don't even use infrared cameras because they think that, they have the ability to sense infrared. It's a possibility. And UV is the same way. So there's that. I mean,
Well, that would
think
be
UV
interesting
the
to
same.
talk to the lady that was fishing,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
if they had anything like
If
that.
they were using UV radiation of any type,
Yeah.
that would be interesting to definitely follow up with, because that's the kind of thing you really got to look at. It's like, did you inadvertently create that situation, so to speak? That's
Basically baited them in.
without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we were the only ones on that lake that night.
Yeah.
When we put in the boat that night, there were no other vehicles in the parking lot. No, and that's the only place you launch from up there, launch a boat. So
Yeah.
we were the only ones on the lake
Wow. All night.
all night.
Wow.
Well,
Is it-
at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was packing up and heading home.
Right.
Right. People could have snuck in there in that 3 hours, I guess. Right. But man, I tell you, that's the kind of stuff though that really makes you scratch your head and say, what? Can we just look at it like that? I mean, how do we explain 3 hours of missing time? Adrenaline dump? I don't know, maybe, possibly, but I would think that you would remember something there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't remember anything. I just remember strapping the boat down.
That's wild,
And
man.
that's all I remember. Strapping
Okay.
down,
It's really wild.
getting in, and I remember looking at my brother saying, "Boy, that was weird," and driving home. And it takes an hour to drive from there to my driveway. It takes 1 hour. So in that hour, I don't remember talking about it.
Wow.
Man.
So,
Now
and
you
I love
also
this.
had some
I can't
weird.
imagine not talking about it.
It sounds so familiar to me, though. I had an experience once, and the same kind of thing happened. We just didn't talk. I mean, it even happened with the whole Mothman-like sighting. I mean, me and Ray didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about that for decades. And then finally it was like we started comparing notes. I mean, we talked about it that night one time, and after that it was dropped. We never really revisited it. That's weird for me, but I didn't pay attention to it.
I know I have said things about this. I have mentioned having an experience there, something breaking branches on the hill. And when you start talking about that, everybody looks at you and says, it was a bear.
Right.
It was a bear. I'm like, okay. I go no further with them. I don't
Well,
want to.
it's fine
try to
that
create a conversation.
it's that
If you
radioactive
think it's a
bear.
bear,
Right?
then I
The
won't say my
radioactive
word.
It's that
So,
radioactive bear that
you've also had some weird experiences in one of our active research areas. There in
Yes,
Kanawha State
over Kanawha
Forest.
State.
Speaking of radioactive bears,
Right? There's a good segue.
anyway.
Okay, Kanawha State Forest.
Yeah.
Now this goes way back. This is like 1967.
Yeah, this
I
is before
That's
us.
67.
That was
That's a
before
good
you
year.
guys.
That's Patty. Patty happened in October of 67. That's a good year.
This was in the winter.
67. Mothman. What?
This is right at the Mothman area. Now it was before or after. I don't remember. I don't remember that part.
Yeah, it would have been.
But I remember school was off, and I had a little mini bike, and we had like a 6-inch snow, and I never had a desire to do this before, but I got up that morning and I had this desire to go to Kanawha State Forest, go up I always called it Three Creeks, but what do you call it, Joe?
The name, if you go there now, like if you were to go into the park and look at the map, you would be going up Dunlop Hollow.
Dunlop Hollow. Well, anyway, I get on my mini bike. This thing's a little Yamaha Maverick, 55 cc's. I get on that thing and I ride it to Knoll State Forest in 6 inches of snow. Now, what I'm doing is I'm riding through the tracks that everybody made going to work that morning. And I lived about maybe about 2.5, 3 miles from the gate at Knoll State. And I get to the gate and the gate's closed and there are no tracks through Knoll State. So I just run around and just head up in there. I'm thinking, man, I've got the whole forest to myself today. So I ride up through there and I get to Dunlop Hollow. But instead of going into Dunlop Hollow, I decide I'm going to go up through the campground. So I ride up the hill and look down in the hollow there. And the hollow is, it's like 150 yards kind of a square down there. They used to have a backstop and they'd play baseball down there. The Boy Scouts used to camp in there. It's a nice flat little area.
Yeah, I remember
there.
playing baseball in that field when I was younger.
Well, I look down there and it's all flat, nice white, pristine snow. And I'm thinking, man, I'm going to have fun doing wheelies down there. So I'm going to do donuts in the snow. So I go up and I drive down through the campground. There's nobody in the campground. And I get out there in that field and I start doing donuts. And I was having a blast. And I'm doing these donuts and all of a sudden my motor cuts out. Just quits. So I'm thinking, I'm not the least bit worried about having to walk 7 miles home with this bike. I'm not even thinking about that. So I just leaned back on the bike and it was so quiet. I was enjoying the quiet. And then I hear it. I hear this noise. Something in the hollow. So you got the road is behind me.
Okay.
The campground is to my left.
Yep. So you're looking straight up the hollow.
To the right. And right straight in front of me is a hollow that really it has just a fire road trail.
Yeah, that's still all it is just a fire road. So yeah, that's not much has changed other than the fact they took out the backstops.
And the it's chained across there. So I'm just sitting there and I hear this scream up on the hill. And I mean, I'd never heard anything before until about 10 years ago. I had never heard anything since that sounded anything like it. And it was so bad that I almost left my mini bike there and ran home. But I didn't. I picked up my bike and pushed it out, got to the main road, kicked it one time, it started, and I never looked back.
Wow.
Now the noise that I heard, it sounded like, and I know you guys have heard it, the that chatter, the ape chatter.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I remember telling somebody this story one time, and I had a recording of that chatter. And if you look back, that was recorded in like 68 or 69. Right after I heard this thing. So it was along the same time this was recorded. And I'm not saying that they're related. I'm just saying that's right. When they got this recording about that same time. And when I heard that for the first time since then, the hair on the back of my neck just stood up. It just brought it back like bam. It was there. And wow. But that's that. I've never seen anything. Yeah, I just heard it.
Just heard it.
One of the best auditory experiences that I've ever had. I was actually with my wife, and we were up. There's a trail that once you go up that you go through the where that chain is at, and you walk on up there maybe about a half mile, and then on your left it goes up a trail called you can go up the backside of Pine Ridge to Rocky Ridge. And when you get to where those 2 points merge, there's this nice rocky overlook and all that stuff. And we were sitting up there, and we heard this big, deep, bellowing moan. And Kelly's jaw hit the floor, and she was like, "Oh my God, did you hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it wasn't like 3 weeks later that I got my good Zoom recorder in. Actually had something I could record stuff like that with. But it was just phenomenal. It was right there in that same hollow.
You know, they like in this 70, I'd say it was 73, 74. They used to have that gate open.
Yeah.
And I used to take I had a Volkswagen thing, and I used to drive back up in there, which was a blast.
I bet.
Wow.
Yeah, that it's still a fire service road, like, and there's an old oil well or gas well out there still. But yeah, it's still wild.
Well, that is crazy. I mean, especially considering, you had that response. Yeah, the response of immediately, I'm getting out of here. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm leaving my bike. If I have to, I'm running. And that's the same. That's that primal fear thing I talk about all the time, right? Because there's just something that hits inside of you, and it's like, okay, go. You don't think about it. You're just go. And yeah, you definitely experienced something out there. There's no doubt.
So when after you experienced that, that happened back in the 60s. Prior to that, were you interested in any kind of weird and bizarre phenomena?
Well, like I said, I grew up with always hearing about Braxton County Monster, and I had like I said, every chance I got, if I'd find a book on UFOs, I'd buy it when I had the money. When I got a little older and
Yeah.
could afford to buy it.
Yeah.
So I have a pretty good collection of old UFO books, old comic books, old anything that had a UFO monster. I do have a question for you guys.
Okay.
What did you think the first time you saw the Patterson Gimlin film? The first time you saw it.
I know the first time I saw it was on In Search Of. And I remember seeing it. And you know what was weird about the whole Bigfoot thing? It was one of those things like, well, I know it's real, but it's not something that really, like, I didn't want to go out and look for it, because I honest to God thought that Bigfoot was just something out in the Pacific Northwest. I never knew that it was prolific as it actually is. And still to this day, that's to me one of the biggest things. That's just literally something I was no more than 4 years ago that I figured out, hey, these things are pretty much everywhere, and I just always a possibility, but it never really made me want to go out and look for it, because I just thought it was so remote and far away.
For me, I remember the first time I saw it, I was younger, and it was on In Search Of, but it was in its syndicated run on Sci-Fi. And my grandmother yelled for me because she knew it was coming on, and it was they'd showed that first little initial clip during the opening segment where you see that bit,
Right.
and she yelled for me to come in there. She's like, "Here's the Bigfoot film. You need to come see it." And so it was the first time I'd ever seen it. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I know I was in school.
But did you think it was real?
Oh yeah, I was enamored.
Oh yeah.
And she was the same way. She knew it, and beyond a shadow of a doubt, she knew it was real. Nothing could convince her otherwise. And she pulled me in there. We were watching that, and she was like, "Look at that! Look at that! There's the Bigfoot." and I was just like, oh man, that is
Mhm.
crazy. And then, this fascination with the weird stuff was born from there for me. Because that, all the other shows that we'd watched together and all this stuff that we'd seen was just like kind of encounter stories. This was the first time there was ever like real
You
footage,
saw it.
like
You
you
saw
actually
it.
had it right there on
Yeah.
the screen, and it wasn't a story that
Yeah.
here's a video clip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I thought when I first saw it. I thought fake. I thought that is fake. But you got to realize the first time I saw it was when it first came out.
That's
Did you
true.
did you get to see it in theaters?
Then no, I saw it. I can't remember what show I saw it on, like the news or something.
Yeah.
And you see the clip one time. That's all you get to see it.
Yeah.
It weren't recorders back then. It weren't video. You got to remember that there hasn't always been video recorders. There had
Right. Yeah, you
those
couldn't do
things
it.
came
It ran
along
one time and it
later.
was over.
So I'm looking at this thing, and I thought the butt doesn't look right on it. It just looked to me fake. But then when I got to where I could run it back and forwards, looking at the muscles, looking at,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, this thing's real. That's a real video. But when I first saw it, I thought it was fake. I thought that goofy walk, and
Yeah.
I just thought I didn't believe it.
One of the things that we also have to think about, guys, is think about the quality of the resolution that we actually saw that at. And the resolution you saw it at would have been way worse than what we saw it as. And ours is still worse compared to today.
With the new upgrades and the 4K rendering and stabilization. You were watching and it was,
It was jerking all over, and it looked like it just looked like the suit didn't fit over the butt right. That's the one spot that I looked at that I thought, that's not right. Something's not right there. But that was my first impression of that film, and since then I've become much more of a believer. And I tell you, Yeti was like the thing I really thought was the true thing. Yeti.
Yeah.
And I would try to find stuff on Yeti, and it was like near impossible back in the '60s to get anything on that.
There was only, I think, like I've got both books, and I think I'm fairly certain there were only two on the Yeti in the '60s. It was Yeti, the Abominable Snowman, and the Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas. I think are the two of them.
Did they have any pictures in them?
Just of like scenery, nothing of like tracks or anything.
Okay, I remember having a book, and it had tracks.
The tracks.
The Yeti tracks are kind of really interesting looking. They got a big toe, and it goes off, and then I do remember seeing one, and I think they disproved it wasn't a Yeti, but there was a skeleton of a hand. I think it's one
mummified hand.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, this is like a secondary that went with it, and it was Bigfoot, the Abominable Snowman, Bigfoot, the Yeti, and Sasquatch: Myth and Reality by John Napier. And this was done in this is a first edition too. This one, it was 1973 was when this one was done. Copyright was 72, published in 73. But this is like that picture, and then you've got the Bigfoot footprint picture here. But this is like, hand drawn.
Yeah. But that's the print I remember seeing.
Yeah.
I tell you what really got me going on it, Bigfoot, was the Legend of Boggy Creek.
Oh yeah, man, that was one that snagged a lot of people because that one hit the pop culture vein real hard.
Oh man, in the '70s, anytime that came to the drive-in, I was there. I was at the drive-in to see that movie, and so you got to remember, we didn't have video recorders.
Yeah,
things came on. You got to see it one time, and that was it.
Yeah.
So when that came on drive-in. I was out there. I was hooked on that movie.
That's pretty
You
awesome.
know, when back then, seeing all those the pop culture stuff, and then having the Patterson Gimlin stuff out there too. You know, it's a wonder that there wasn't more interest back then, as much as there is today in that stuff. But like to a degree, I'm almost grateful that there wasn't more interest in it, because now like it created the possibility for people like us today to have these experiences where, you know, now modern day, we have ties to Bluff Creek and to the film site for Patty, for the Patterson Gimlin film site. You know, we've had the mini track casts that I sculpt. One of the guys from the Bluff Creek project went out there and pressed a bunch of them into the gray
Oh, really?
creek sand and cast them, and had little miniatures that he was giving to people. And we've also got a one of a kind pewter track cast that is hidden at the film site.
No one's found that yet.
No one has found it yet. Nope, nobody has found it yet. They know where it's at. Like the Bluff Creek Project guys, they know where it's
Yeah.
at.
But no one's
And it was there the last time that somebody went. So nobody has found it yet. But you know, it's cool having those kind of connections to it now. Like, you know, here we are in 2023, and there's bits and pieces of West Virginia essentially now in the Bluff Creek area. As minuscule as it is, it's still really cool to have that kind of connection to it.
It's pretty cool. It's a
And
very
knowing Bob,
cool case.
being friends with Bob Gimlin. I mean, who we'd have never in a million years dreamed that would have ever been a thing.
Yeah, that's
but
crazy.
here we are. And
Yeah, it's and once you talk to Bob, you actually have a little bit more respect for the legend.
Yeah.
In my opinion, anyways.
So we know that you sent us a video to go over. You want to talk a little bit about that?
The GoPro.
Yep, the
Yeah.
GoPro footage.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Well, since I've never seen a UFO, never seen a orb, never seen anything, and that's the one thing I would like to see. I would like to see something like that.
Speaking of doing that, when we get together, what we'll do is we will get together and we will go out to mud together, and we will take the thermal and we'll do a little bit of everything.
Oh, that would be wow.
And we'll give you a shot at trying to see something up in the sky, because it's
We've
always
gotten
there.
to the point now to where we just take everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally it. We take everything. When I go out at this point into the woods, I mean, when we were out there with Seth, I think I had everything on me in one way or another. It was in my pockets.
There was what we didn't have on us, we had in the case in the truck.
You know, we literally had everything. So it's
well,
we'll
you know,
do that.
Jesse has a great idea, and she said recorder always on.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And
So before you get out of the
always have
vehicle,
a recorder on, at least a recorder.
Yep.
And I thought that's a pretty good idea. So what I do is I take my GoPro and put it in the backyard, and I position it, and then I open the shutter for 30 seconds, and then leave it for the whole night. And every 30 seconds, it closes and reopens. So I can see the Milky Way just scroll across the sky, and then when I do that, I bring it in, and then I put it into a 30 frames a second, and then do it in a video, and then I back it back out and do one frame at a time and go through looking for anything different. And that particular night, and it's so faint, I don't know how I caught it.
I have no idea how you caught it.
But there was a little dot, and it moved across the sky, and it moved oh, I guess if you had the screen about a 12-inch screen, it moved maybe about 4 inches, and an 18-minute period. So every 30 seconds, it would just barely move, and it just barely went across. And now that we've got all these shooting down these balloons, I'm
Makes you wonder if that's what
Yeah,
you
it,
sure
might
makes
have
you wonder.
seen.
But the
Yeah,
thing just appeared,
yeah,
moved
yeah.
for
That's
about
what's unique
18
about it.
minutes, very
It doesn't just
slowly.
slowly come into frame. Like it's just suddenly pop.
It was there, and
Mhm.
then it moved about 4 inches, and then it was gone,
Yeah.
which I thought was strange. So I sent it to Ron to see what he thought about it. And then he posted it, and I don't remember what anybody really said about it. I guess we came to the conclusion it was
It's a true unknown.
Yeah,
That was our conclusion. It was a true unknown, and that happens a lot when I post up something. It's like because typically what I'll do, and you saw that, is I'll go in and say, well, it could be this, could be that, could be this, and that just kind of gets rid of the potential trolls who want to jump on it and say, oh, it was absolutely. They can't because I've already said that. It's a possibility. That's what it is. We just want to know what you think it could be. If they're going to offer us something else, and no one has offered anything on that as far as I could remember. And it was just a true unknown. I mean,
yeah.
the closest we got was
Everybody
satellite.
pretty well left it alone with the
They're like,
same, labels that you had allegedly or possibly could have put on it.
well, they thought,
Um,
well, satellite. I'm like, well, if that's a satellite, there's no satellites moving that slow. I mean, that's not a satellite.
no, because that was 18
That's,
minutes.
no.
Satellites already crossed the whole sky
Yep.
Yeah.
in just a couple frames.
Exactly.
right.
It's like, no, that's not how that works. And now, like you said, with these balloon things, it's like it was kind of moving at that speed, but it just appears and disappears, and that's not a balloon. Balloons don't do that.
No, they have a predictable and trackable path.
Drone? No, it's not a drone. It's too long. Back when you shot this, the average, even the average battery on a typical drone, it wasn't going to make it to where it would have been in frame, and
They would have crash landed.
it would have
But
crashed.
when
would
it
have
left, it
returned.
means that the battery died and it just fell from the sky.
it would have been returning to base or something. So we can rule that out too. So
Yeah, like you said, it was there.
Mhm.
18 minutes later, it was over here, and it was
Yeah.
gone, and you
Yeah.
could see it move. That's a beauty of the screen like that. It was slowly going up through there, and I don't know how I saw it because it was very faint.
Yeah.
It was very faint, and if you think about it, on the first Wild and Weird Con that we had, I spent the night out there, and I set my GoPro up on the balcony.
On the balcony, yeah.
And did the same thing off the balcony out there, and it has us out there having the picnic after the little gathering we had, and
that was the one I wasn't
down
at,
there,
right?
Yeah, this was the one
then-
that Ron wasn't at because
That
he was
was
moving
the one I
to
wasn't
COVID
at.
back.
Yeah, that was fun times.
Oh yeah, that's right, Ron. You weren't there,
He wasn't there that night. He didn't get to
Yeah.
make it till the next morning.
but my room overlooked that,
Oh, cool.
and then I set the camera at the sky that night, and I did get one really nice picture. I sent that to you.
Yes, that's right.
And you said you thought it was a
I think you caught a really cool meteoroid or a meteorite.
Bullide.
Yeah.
and I look at that and I still think, man, it's like it looks like a laser shooting up
It does. Yeah.
more than a meteor coming down because it's straight.
Yeah.
I mean, it is straight up and down
It's
Yeah.
pretty impressive, is what it
to the
is.
ground.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an impressive shot. That was a really cool one. I remember. I think it's a meteor. I mean, I could be wrong, dude.
Well, it just
still-
if everybody would take their GoPro, and I'm sure a lot of people have GoPros,
Mhm.
and put it
Yeah.
on a tripod and put it in their backyard,
You'd be
It's hard to
surprised.
say what all we would See,
Oh yeah.
Dude, I started in last July doing that with actually with the phone, because now they're, man, they got like, 30, 40 megapixels on these things now. And the night vision stabilization, it's amazing. So you can literally just go out there and turn it on and record, and you can get those kind of long lapse videos. And some of the weird stuff that I caught. I mean, that's what kind of led us in that direction of, well, there's actually something going on here. I think if more people did it, yeah, we'd have just a treasure trove of, well, we probably have a bunch of, airplanes too, but there would be something to sift through, I think, and
but
find. And that's kind of what they're trying to do, I think, with the Galileo project. They're just using AI to go through and filter it out, which is pretty brilliant, honestly.
AI, the AI is going to replace us one day.
Sure it will. Yeah. I've already
So,
warned that. So I'm pretty much just trying to get in with my machine overlords before it's too late.
That's why we got the Alexa in the house. We wanted to butter it up before it took over.
Yeah.
correct.
I mean, they'll give us a good time before they take over. They already said they would. So,
So what else? What else has Ike been into in the past that might be worth talking about?
Well, Ike was actually at the St. Albans. What is it? I can't think of the name of the thing. Darn it! I love that thing too.
Paranormal.
Talk.
Yeah, what do they call that?
Yeah.
What's the official name? Do you remember? I
I
don't
think
remember.
it's paranormal talk. St. Albans
uh,
Paranormal Talk.
Let's see.
Yeah, get that, because I want to give them a little shout out there. It's really an awesome thing.
It is.
I love it. I think it's a great idea, and we try to go as often as we can. For the past couple of months, though, I've been like doing something every single one. I even missed yours, but I had a good excuse. I was sick when I missed yours, so that was different. That was. I had a good excuse there.
Yeah. Well, that night I talked about sleep paralysis
Yeah.
and and it's kind of hard to go into too much of it without showing slides and
Yeah.
It is
but I
the
went through the different what I did. The last 15 years I worked at the hospital. I worked in a sleep disorder center. I was a registered polysomnographer and a registered sleep technologist. And I would read a lot on sleep paralysis, and how I first heard of sleep paralysis was I, at one point I was education coordinator for respiratory,
Okay.
and we would put on this respiratory conference every year, and we had the ventilator companies would sponsor a doctor to come in and talk about how great their ventilator is
Okay.
and what you can do with it. So at the last moment, the doctor couldn't make it. So they got a substitute physician to come in from, I think it was somewhere in Kentucky. And he was going to talk about sleep paralysis. Well, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna suck. But I'm gonna go in there and listen to it. So I go in there and listen to this guy, and 5 minutes into it, he has me hooked, man. I telling you, I'd never heard of anything like that. And he was talking about when you fall asleep and what what really well, it's let me back up just a second. To get into sleep paralysis, uh, and I don't have my list here to go through all this stuff, but some of the things that trigger it is like emotions,
Hmm.
like if you've had a loved one pass, and if you're in a new an environment, and several things like that. And he was talking about, like somebody in your family has passed and you have them on your mind, and you go to a different house that you're used to sleeping in, and you're distressed and you start to fall asleep, and you get into that state where you're actually dreaming, but your eyes are open, and you see the room, and you're dreaming, and then your eyes not only receive what's coming in, but they become a projector and project out a vision like a loved one, the one you just seen. That's why he was saying, and it made perfect sense when he was going over it. I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is the answer to everything." He said, "That's how you see a ghost or a recently uh, passed loved one, and you see him in your room." And how many people have you heard say, "Oh, I've seen," what after my
Yeah.
parents died, they're in my room talking to me. Well, he was explaining that, and I'm sitting there saying, "Oh, that's it. That's how people see these aliens coming in the room to get them. They're having sleep paralysis."
Yeah. That was one of the big theories. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm sitting there saying, "Oh, eureka! This makes perfect sense." And then I I kind of had a little event of my own, and it was a very mild one compared to what some people have. But what happened to me was I was in Kentucky, strange environment. I was in the jailhouse inn, which is supposed to be haunted. So I've got, I've got that going for me. And
Programmed.
I'm staying in one of these rooms that used to be three jail cells. And that evening we had dinner with Colonel Michael Masters, and he is the bourbon that Colonel Sanders is the chicken. This
Gotcha.
guy is the man about bourbon. And we're sitting there, and he's teaching me the fine arts of bourbon drinking. And he looks at me and he says, "Like," he said, "Where you staying at tonight?" And I said, "Well, I'm staying at the Jailer's Inn." And he looked at me and he says, "Most haunted building in all of Kentucky." And I said, "Really?" And he says, "Yes, there've been people hung there. There's been a lot of people died there. It's
Oh,
a very
wow.
haunted building." So I didn't think anything else of it. I enjoyed my bourbon. Uh, we go back and we go to bed. So the first thing we do when we get in a strange place like that is we go to the bathroom. We turn the light on in the bathroom, shut the door to it. It's just got a little crack, so there's a little light coming out. And that way, in the middle of the night, you go to the bathroom, you don't knock your toe against the
Right.
board. So I'm laying there, and I've got my hands on my chest, about like this.
Yeah.
And I'm laying there, and I feel something very cold grab this finger. And I'm looking down my chest, and I could see that finger raise up. And then my whole hand raises up. And then it turns it to a 45-degree turn, and then it just dropped. And I'm like, that was the most strange thing I've ever experienced. So I look at my wife, and she's facing away from me, asleep. And I'm thinking, well, all these ghosts, this stuff happens at a certain time. I better go look at the clock. So
What
I'll
time
roll
is
over and look at the clock, and it's 11:11. 1111. And at the time, I,
it?
I had never ever heard of anybody having an experience at 11:11. I've always heard of 3:33,
333,
2:23,
Yeah.
222. Yeah. Yeah.
11:11. But since then, I've looked it up, and there
Yeah.
are a lot of
Synchronicity.
there's a lot of books. There's books written about 11:11. Things happen at 11:11.
Yeah.
So I'm laying there and I'm thinking, wow, that. And I wasn't least bit frightened. No, I just thought that was a great experience. I thought it was
Fascinated.
great.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, do it again. Yeah.
Right?
So, uh, I lay there and I try to stay awake to see if anything else happens, and nothing else happens. And I get up the next morning and I'm telling my wife about it. And she said, it's that bourbon you drank last night. And I was like, I've had a lot of bourbon to drink in my life, but I've never had it do that to me before.
Yeah.
It
What was
wasn't
in it?
bourbon. So we go downstairs and it's a bed and breakfast, and the guy's fixing breakfast. And he says, he said, did anybody have any experiences last night? My wife says, he says, he, he had one grab his hand last night. So I tell him the story.
Yeah.
And I'm telling it to him in front of all the other customers in there, And he says, that's really strange. He said, the strange thing is, he said, we've had people see things and we've had people hear things, but we've never had anybody touched by anything. And I'm like, well, if I was going to make up a story, I would sure as heck come up with something better than it grabbed my ring finger on my right hand and turned my hand and dropped it. But since all of that, and since I've looked up this stuff on sleep paralysis, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what I had, sleep paralysis that night.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
That's pretty awesome. And what's really funny is you and me both kind of did the same thing. You did it in an official capacity. I was doing it in an absolute experimental capacity. And I think we both arrived at the same conclusion that there's something actually there, though. I mean, sure, it might be in here, but there's something else going on. I mean, 1111, I mean, all these things there's always these little clues, these little packets of weirdness, I guess, that have to make us question everything. But yeah, the whole the sleep paralysis thing, they've used that literally as a explanation for anything that can't
Everything. They've used it for everything.
It's a blanket.
Well, I'm beginning to think that instead of it being sleep paralysis, I think maybe the combination of all those situations is opening your mind to allow you to see what's really there, what's possible, what's maybe like that's the way
like
your
you're in
loved
between
ones
realms.
Can communicate with you,
right?
And talk to you. That it's all that stuff is true. Yes, you've got a strange environment. All this stuff is going through your mind, but maybe that's what it takes to open you up to be able to experience that.
Yeah, it's like a programming. It's almost like, what we do in metaphysics, where we use crystals or thoughts on mandalas, things like that, to just focus the mind. There's nothing magical about it. It's just the fact that you're using something to focus on. I could focus on this microphone cover if I wanted to long enough, and then I would go into this. I would come down from the States and go into beta, and delta and so forth, and possibly get into that relaxed zone and have one of these so-called mystical experiences. I mean, it happens. It's just a matter of how they happen. And, we talked about that in the out-of-body experience episode. I mean, deeply talked about that in the out-of-body experience episode that we did here.
Yeah. And the other area that I think is so interesting is lucid dreaming,
which is related.
Right there with it.
Yep.
And lucid dreaming is anybody can do it.
Yep.
And you just takes a little time to train yourself to be able to do it. And I was watching. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Harvey with Jimmy Stewart. Have you ever seen it?
I don't think so.
Oh God,
that's a movie
so. You must watch it.
Really?
It is.
I like Jimmy Stewart, so yeah. Okay.
Jimmy Stewart has this fictitious rabbit he calls Harvey, 6 foot 3 inches
this
tall.
Sounds familiar. I bet.
And it's a puka, and it's he takes it out to the bars. He takes, and his sister is trying to have him committed because she can't have a social life because of this big rabbit. And anyway, she takes Jimmy Stewart to this this place, and everything happens in his favor. You know, you have to watch the movie.
Yeah.
But the one thing that stands out to me is he's telling the doctor. The doctor he believes in Harvey, and he asked Jimmy Stewart if Harvey could stay with him. And Jimmy Stewart says, "Yes, yeah, if he wants to, he could stay with you." But he says Harvey has this ability to let you go anywhere you want to go, with whoever you want to go with. Do what you want to do. Stay as long as you want. And when you come back, not 1 second has clicked off the clock. And this doctor, he's talking about he'd like to go to Akron, Ohio, and have a pretty girl serve him beer. It's a great movie.
That was a big thing back then. So yeah.
And but lucid dreaming is a lot like that, where
Yeah, it is.
you can train yourself to control
Yeah.
your dream, go where you want with you whoever you want, and train yourself to do that. But you need to be careful, because I determined I wanted to do it. I wanted to have a lucid dream, and so the way you do it is you when you get up at night, you write down anything you dreamed about, and then you look at it the next day, and you might say, well, I met Joe Smith down the road. He was standing down here. Well, lucid dreaming wants you to look at the person. What were they wearing? What kind of clothes did they have on?
All
Did they
the
have shoes on? Were they standing in gravel? Were they standing in the road? Were they standing in grass? If they were, what color was the grass? What color was the sky? So as you start documenting more, you become more aware of what's going on in your dream to try to document this. And then you get to the point where you're aware that you're dreaming. And then you have to, it is so realistic, you have to have a key to tell you that you are in a dream.
Yep.
And the way I was taught to do it is you take your watch and you look at your watch, then you turn your head, then you look at the watch again. And when you look at the watch, it's not going to be the same time. You're in a dream.
Right.
And at that point, you can take over and do what you want to do. So I had that happen to me one night. I had a dream. I'm working in the sleep lab. I'm showing a patient a room, and the room's a mess. It's just a complete mess. Bed's not made. It's just filthy, and I'm embarrassed. And I'm sitting there telling the patient, I'm sorry. And I'm explaining to him, and I'm raising heck at the same time. Why is this like this? And then this nurse comes in, and she says, don't worry, Ike, we'll take care of it. We'll do this. We'll get it all cleaned up. We'll take your patient out in the hall. And we'll do this. And then it hit me. We don't have a nurse in our department. So I'm like, we're dreaming. So I look at my watch, turn my head, look at my watch, different time. I'm in a dream. So I look at the nurse and I said, we're dreaming. And she said, yes, we are. And I said, well, let's just get the heck out of here. So we start out, and then I wake up. So I'm like, Eureka, I've done it. I know how to do it now. I've done it. So I'm really tickled about being able to do it. Well, 2 days later, I'm in a gym working out, and I'm on a treadmill, and there's a guy beside me. And I'm working out, and this guy leaves, and I look over, And right beside me is the nurse I seen in that dream. Exactly. And I'd never seen her before. And that really shook me up to the point where I'm like, this is something I don't need to be messing with. It was like it was telling me you're messing where you shouldn't be messing. So I never did anything with it after that.
Hmm. It's
But
because it's just too odd. It's there's something there, like I said. It's been proven. What you found is pretty much what I found. Lucid dreams, out of body experiences, remote viewing. Those three things are related. They operate off of the same frequencies. They operate in the same frequency range. You are in the, I believe it. You're somewhere in the. It's beyond beta brain waves. I'm thinking it's somewhere in the delta brainwave state, if I'm right. And I was using biofeedback to put me in that state. And the whole thing with me was I would write the C on the back of my hand. That's how I did it. It was later I learned about the watch trick. That's really a really cool one too, though. But it's the keys. And once you figure out the keys, you can either go into your lucid dream like you did that multiple times. You can also launch right out of a lucid dream right into an out of body experience if you know how to do it. So these things are all gateways. And the scary part is, and we didn't know this until recently, we were doing some research for an episode on shared dreams. It is common. It is so common that it's actually a recognized thing. It's thousands of people have had these shared type dreams. And though they can't be, what was the exact quote? They can't be verified, but they have been recorded, and they've been recorded by multiple in multiple sessions of professional psychiatrists. These, so they can't say it's real because it's too weird, but there's the data, and the data says that there is absolutely something going on. That's just
Yes,
fascinating.
yeah, I really enjoy lucid dreaming personally. It's that's kind of been um I guess you could say a frequent escape for me over the last couple decades. Once I learned, because I did some study into it as well, and learned how to uh, basically get yourself primed into lucid dreaming, and yeah, it's completely different. Like it's a totally different world, literally, and the things you can do and experience, and the possibilities that of well, basically the limitations that are lifted off of you in the dream world versus what you can do physically is just,
What
and the
I
fact that you be
find,
aware while you're doing it.
what I find amazing about that, Ike, is that if the theory's right, if the theory is right, you interacted with this person on a psychic level, which means that the stars literally had to be lined up almost exactly. Like the frequencies had to be the exact same going in for both of you for that to even happen, for that to be able to happen, which is just crazy considering you
Or
didn't know each other.
or it's possible that they were both at the gym and they'd both been at the gym previously, but you see faces, and our brains record faces whether we want them to or not, just because we're that's how pareidolia works. It's the whole point behind it, is we recognize the faces and patterns and whatnot, and in our dreams we program those faces of people that we don't know and overlay them onto these people in our dreams is another possibility,
Possibility.
because that's what most dream people will tell you anyway, like the people who are in the science side, is that we will see these people's faces and we remember their faces, and we will impress those faces onto the characters in our dream.
what you know what I'll never forget what my grandmother told me years ago. we were talking. I don't know how we even got on the subject, but we was talking about when I start to fall asleep, I jerk every
Oh
once in a
yeah,
while. You jerk up,
the
and
hypnagogic
that's
shock.
that's a hypnagogic start or a
Yeah.
Yeah.
jerk. And you were- you know what she told me it was. She said, "What you got there is you got death,
Mhm.
and he's walking around looking for bodies, and he sees you there asleep, and he doesn't know if you're alive or dead. So what he does is he takes his stick and he pokes you with it, and if you don't jerk, he takes you. So
That's a
so
good way to
whenever I
do it.
have a hypnagogic jerk, I've kind of smiled to myself, and I'm like, man, that was great.
That is hilarious. But that's part of the lore too. That when you do that, there are the beliefs that your soul's trying to leave your body. Uh, stuff like
And you get
that.
snapped back.
Snapback, and snapback is 100% legit. I can attest to that. It's something you don't forget. It's literally something you don't forget, because that was unfortunately some of the reentries to my out of body experiences. They were not these gentle descents that you hear people talk about. You don't just and wake up. It don't work that way. You literally slam back into your body, and it's quite the experience. Let's just say that. And it's kind of like that though, because as you're kind of drifting off to sleep, and then you kind of feel that little bit of falling, and then you jerk, right?
Right.
It's almost like that, except for it's, I don't know, about 100,000 times more powerful. And
Well, when it happens, it's one of those things that you can't recreate it.
nope,
It's
nope.
and I'm like, I kind of enjoy it when it happens because I know that death didn't get me,
There you go.
and
Like,
Next
it's I
time.
can't reproduce.
you put a little mark, little hashtag, you know. But it's really cool. Did you ever experience any of the vibrational states or anything during any of your experiments by any chance? Like hear a high pitch hum or vibration on the body, anything like that you can think of?
No, I don't remember anything like that.
Okay, that's one of the telltale indicators of the out of body. So as you're adjusting their fields, basically it's a whole imagery process. It's kind of complex, but as you're doing it, the vibration will start, and you can kind of feel it, and you kind of hear it in your head. Well, when I said that I learned how to launch from a lucid dream into that, in the lucid dream, I don't know if it was real or if I could just imagine it, the frequency, but it was so much easier in the lucid dream just to be like, okay, there's the sound, there's the vibration, poof, out you go. Uh, and if that's the case, man, you got to look at lucid dreams as the possibility of darn near everything psychically possible. There's just so much potential there that it could unleash the mind, I guess, so to speak. You're basically, tapping into oh, I don't even know, almost a hallucinatory state, right? But there's more realism to it, and there's a possibility that you're stepping way beyond, again, on a psychic level, and making these connections with places and people that you physically cannot make contact with.
Yeah,
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 it's pretty amazing stuff. But it's really cool to have you on because you've actually been there in the lab. You've seen the numbers. You can look at it and tell when someone's in this state or that state, and that's something, again, it was just a hobby to me. But I always wanted to have, like, I was back in the day, we had access to some oscilloscopes and whatnot, and we were toying with the idea of building a rudimentary like a EEG, so we could actually look at some of the waveforms and whatnot. Now that's ludicrous back then, but now you can actually buy those kits for your oscilloscopes. So
Yeah.
I was a little bit ahead of my time when I was trying to figure out this stuff, I think. And now it's just like, I don't care. Been there, done
Yeah.
it. I don't care. I'm good, because I think that there's a lot more to that stuff than just mere dreaming and mere your mind getting rid of clutter. Let's just put it that way.
Well, what's really neat is if you and I've got several kind of slides on the different stages of sleep and how closely wake and REM look.
Really close.
And they are very close.
Yeah, the activity in the brain is really
Brain
seen.
is like, yes.
Yeah.
And when you get into really deep sleep, stage 3 sleep,
Yeah.
the brain waves are like really large. So
Oh
the
yeah.
brain's
Yeah.
in deep sleep. And that's where people have night terrors. And they're very hard to wake up because they're in such a deep sleep. Where uh, REM sleep, that's where you'd have the sleep paralysis. It almost looks like you're awake. And that's where I'm thinking,
Wow.
man, maybe you're just crossing over into another plane. Maybe you're just able to see
Yep.
into that next uh, realm there instead of being a dream. You're actually experiencing some of this.
Yeah.
So
And
it's so realistic.
that's the level that you're talking about too.
Yeah, it's so realistic.
Yep.
You know, you got doctors saying, "Oh, it's a dream,"
Right.
but you're there and it's real.
It's real. Yeah.
He's not experiencing what you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So to you, it's real. It's
Yep.
very real, and that's why when you have those sleep paralysis and you got the old hag syndrome, an old woman sitting on your chest.
There you go. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That is, to me, that would be very scary to wake up and have an old woman sitting on your chest, and your chest is not moving because your accessory muscles are paralyzed
Yeah.
from being in REM sleep. Um, and it
Which
does feel like
protects you. That's why that happens, right? I mean, that's
right,
that's what that's for. It's to protect you from getting up and doing these things in action.
right. Your brain paralyzes all of
Yeah.
your muscles except your
Yeah.
diaphragm. So your diaphragm continues to allow you to breathe, but your accessory muscles
Fascinating.
won't let you take those deep breaths like you're frightened and you want to you
Yeah.
can't do that in REM. So you can't
Darn.
like if you're fighting somebody, you can't punch the person in the bed beside you because your brain has paralyzed your muscles. So
That's interesting. And that is interesting because that's somewhere in the alpha and the somewhere between alpha and theta, right? Is where that would be occurring.
well, it's kind of in there. It's
Yeah.
like I said, if you one of the ways you identify REM sleep, and you're looking at somebody, is he awake or they are very close?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is he awake or is he asleep? Well, you look at the leads they have on their legs,
Okay.
and they go flat. You look at the eyes, and the eyes are going nuts.
They're going everywhere. Yeah.
So you get these really, really great looking waves on the eyes where the eyes are going left, right, up, down, right, left, left. And then the muscles you look at, and they're paralyzed.
They're flat.
So there's no tension there. It's just a flat line. Other than that, it looks like you're awake almost. So I'm thinking, man, there's so close together, sleep and wake are so close.
Ike, you're tempting me into going back into this research.
Because your brain's not, unless you go into the deep sleep, the brain activity is so similar between REM and wake that it's almost as if your brain is awake. Your brain is doing something.
Your brain's
commanding
Your brain's on
something.
vacation. Your brain's out your brain's in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. While you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
Well, I tell you, and I, you've probably heard this. If you got a problem, you can't work out.
Mhm.
sleep on it.
Yeah.
And your brain just really never uh, relaxes. It never shuts down. It's
Yeah.
constantly. So if you've got a problem and you need to work it out, think about it right before you go to bed, and your brain will work on it all night. And a lot of times you'll wake up in the morning with a solution to the problem. And I've had that happen to me many a times.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
Yep.
lot of famous stories of inventors that had just that happen. So yeah, that's there's flashes of inspiration, out of a dream. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's man, you have done some stuff, my friend.
Well, we appreciate you coming on with us tonight, man. It's been a
Hey,
good time,
anytime.
and we'd love to have you back sometime to talk about any kind of topic. Like you can pick the topic if you want, and we'll have you on.
Yeah. Well, you know,
By all means.
I worked at the hospital 48 years,
Oh
Yeah.
my
and I
God.
talked to a lot of patients, and I've heard a lot of stories.
So what I'm going to ask you before we sign off, what is your overall consensus to some of these accounts, such as ghosts, out of body experiences, etc. I know you haven't personally did that, but do you think we're looking at a plausibility of something here, or is it all just the mind, as based on someone who's looked at the numbers and seen the charts?
No, I believe it. I believe there's something there. Uh, Maybe the next time I'll tell you about the ghost that threw a tube of six at me one night. Uh, but I believe there's something out there, uh,
Wow.
and and I I've talked to a lot of people who just tell me about their near death experiences. I
Oh,
mean, I had a physician talk to me one night about it, and he said I never believed that stuff. Then it happened to him, and so you could you could write a book about
oh
just
yeah.
everything that somebody has told me while I was working in the hospital, because I would ask questions.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I love to work with older patients, and I always ask them one question. I'd say, "What's the most amazing thing you've seen in your lifetime?" And someone would say, "Well, I seen man land on the moon. I saw the end of World War II. I saw this. I saw that." And they'd ask me, "So, what do you think it is?" And I say, "I know what I've seen that I think is the most amazing thing is, we went to the moon, right? But we never went back to the moon. That's what I think is the most amazing thing is we never went back. And it seems like we're starting to get into the mood to go back to the moon now. And I just
Yeah.
couldn't understand why in '69 we could land on the moon, and here it is 2023. We're just now talking about going back. It just amazed me we never went back.
Well, there's many theories to that
There's a
one,
lot of
as you know, my
conspiracy theory with
friend.
that one, that's for sure.
And we're going to see if we're right or wrong here, I think, within the very, very, very near future, too.
Yeah, Elon's going to take us there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's going to go and declare, war on the Martians and the moon people, probably. So, it's going to be funny when we get there and we realize, well, oh, crap, that's not ours. I'm, just speculating out loud. Don't mind me, crazy guy.
Well, Ike, again, it's been fun, man. We appreciate you coming on. We can't wait to have you back on for something else, and definitely can't wait to go hang out with you again. We need to get together sometime soon in person.
Right.
And you're more than welcome back anytime, and keep tracking down reports and sending them our way, my friend.
Okay. Thank
Oh,
you.
absolutely. Keep doing that. And, I expect to see you at the Flatwoods as well.
Yeah, I've already got my room booked.
You were the first, I believe.
He was the first one that sent me a message, said I got my room booked ready for Flatwoods.
I believe you were the first. So, yeah. And we're going to try our best to, give the Flatwoods legend its due after all this time of, kind of, it's been there, but it just hasn't been, there.
This big.
Yeah.
It's
It's
ready
going
to
to be
bust loose.
huge. So guys, if you have enjoyed listening to this episode, head over to the YouTube and go ahead and subscribe and like the video side of this, because there's usually some stuff that's added in, just bonus content that's thrown into the videos that doesn't show up on the audio side. But if you're wanting to listen to audio, you can find us literally anywhere, because that was a real word, right? Literally.
I don't think that was a real word, but whatever you,
You
want
can
to say.
find us anywhere podcasts are found, anywhere you look, any phone system, any computer you're on, or
Any
if you just want to go
galaxy.
to wildandweirdwv.com,
No,
you can
any-
listen to us from the podcast link right there on the website. If you've had a sighting as well, or have some kind of other experience, or just want to share some of your dream experiences, since we got into that a little at the end of the episode, you can send them over to the wildandweirdwv.com, hit the contact us tab, and just fill out the report there. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting or UFO sighting, do the same thing, same link. Go fill it out, fill out the questionnaire, you'll be good to go. And remember, as always, if you're looking to get touched funny by a ghost, it's the Jailer Inn in Kentucky. Probably going to be your best chance. Stay wild and weird, everybody.